What's up? What is up, everybody? Happy Friday. Haven't gone live from here in a while. Hope you guys are doing well. And in a while, there I am. Okay, so it's working, you know. So I just wanted to come on today and say hello and a couple of things I wanted to talk with y'all about. I just put the title of This is What's Wrong with the Jazz Scene. And it's been something that's been kind of irking me, chafing me a little bit about our jazz community. And full disclosure, this is as much about the musicians. I think less so about the fans. This sort of came up from a comment. I'm going to see if I can pull it up here. Well, the exact comment doesn't even really matter. I did a video last week about a specific chord, sharp 9 chord, right? Do we have boom, 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 doom, doom? Yeah. Not that that makes it that much fancier, but whatever. Sharp 9 chord. And, you know, I wanted to include some different styles, some different genres, not even as like a bone of contention or anything, just because I'm interested. I listen to a lot of different kinds of music. And when we talk about learning harmony and ear training and all this kind of stuff, I think it's super, super, important for us to think about, like, how do we hear things in different ways? Not just like we have to go to Coltrane or Willie the Lion Smith or Louis Armstrong. Of course, those are the giants, and we lionize them. We're going to talk about that word lionize because I've been thinking about that. But what are some sometimes simpler ways, just different ways to hear something? And what is the commonality between different, what would seem like disparate styles and artists? And I realize I have to be careful. This is another one of my problems with what's wrong with the jazz community now, the jazz scene, is that, you know, we're not allowed to call certain people artists. I called Beyonce a great or an artist or something without even thinking about it, a musician, which she is, you know. And I got jumped on because I'm not supposed to say that. That's only reserved for John Coltrane, Debussy, Beethoven, and a bunch of dead people, I guess, only. But the thing about it is, I was just trying to connect some things about music, some little tools, in this case, just one chord, one harmony, one sound that all these different artists shared. And so I was looking at it as a welcome in and a connecting point. But I got a little bit of blowback from folks specifically for putting Beyonce in the same sentence with John Coltrane. So that got me thinking about some stuff that chafes me a little bit. And there was 3 words I thought of. The first is elitism. But I wanted to go back and say, like, are we using these words right? Because I've always felt like we're a little bit too elitist in the jazz world. But I was like, what does that actually mean? Because if you talk about like the elite pianists, like I could talk about Keith Jarrett or Brad Mehldau or Herbie Hancock or Willie the Lion Smith and say, these are elite musicians, and that's a very positive thing. But I wasn't sure if we're using that correctly because it seems to have a negative connotation as well, and maybe something that's holding us back in the jazz world. And I just don't like it, you know. Anyway, this is what I got for my definition from the World Wide Web. Elitism is the belief or notion that individuals who form an elite, a select group of people perceived as having an intrinsic quality, high intellect, wealth, power, nobility, special skills, or experience, or are more likely to be constructive to society as a whole, and therefore deserve influence or authority greater than that of others. The term elitism may be used to describe a situation in which power is concentrated in the hands of a limited number of people. So within the construct of jazz, this is a problem. Like, we do not want to have the power concentrated in the hands of a limited number of people who are setting the rules, the so-called jazz elite. And that's something that's very off-putting, I think, for people that want to come into the music, that want to tap their feet to it, that want to groove along with it, that want to sing along with it, that just want to enjoy it. But in the jazz community, we feel like it has to be so elite, and that nobody's allowed in unless you do your homework. And Beyonce can't even be mentioned in the same sentence as John Coltrane and all that stuff. So that's the first thing. I think we have a problem of elitism in the jazz world. And then being dogmatic about it, because that's kind of like, who is allowed into this elite group, who is considered great. What do you have to do in order to be considered a great jazz musician? So we've got Dogma. So then I was like, wait, are we using this one correctly? Dogma is a belief or set of beliefs that is accepted by the members of a group without being questioned or doubted. Kind of sounds like a cult a little bit, right? It may be in the form of an official system of principles or doctrines of a religion, such as Roman Catholicism, Judaism, blah, 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 as well as positions of a philosopher or philosophical school, such as blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so we're too dogmatic. We're too much like, this you can't do, this you can do. What other form of music says that? I mean, even classical music isn't as dogmatic as jazz has become. I mean, classical music is like, yes, there's a certain amount of rigidity maybe that's built in because the notes are written and everything. It's not improvised as much like jazz. But classical musicians that I come across, and like in working with orchestras and conductors over the last 30 years, and also kind of growing up as a classical musician, and my parents are classical musicians in the classical world, they are a lot more accepting to different styles and to kind of going against this thing of like classical music is elite, because that's been a problem for so long. I think that they're kind of handling this better than we do in the jazz world in a lot of ways. So I think we should really think about how dogmatic we're being when we say, you can say this, you can say this, don't come in here, because it's kind of like, we seem intent in the jazz world of keeping things small and exclusive. But why is that? Like, why does it have to only be, 2 or 3 pianists from each generation? Or now I know we just did some podcasts on the 7 great pianists from each generation, but the cup was like filling over. We added bonuses and we talked about a bunch of different people, and we went to a bunch of different styles of pianists. It wasn't just down the middle, and tried to bring other people into the fold, because we want this thing to become bigger. There's so much great music out there. And when we come down and are just like, you can't even say Beyonce's name in the same sentence as John Coltrane. I don't know. It just kind of irks me wrong. Doom, boom, boom. So I'm just looking. Thanks, guys, for being here. I'm at a different system. So, there's all the comments. Oh, cool. This is awesome. What's up, Mari? What's up, Dan? What's up, Tim? Thank you guys for being here. Adam Manis is in the house. What? So anyway, and then the other word I was thinking about in terms of things that irk me is to lionize. Do we lionize our greats too much? Are we here in Open Studio guilty of that? Now, this one was interesting. I had to look this one up too, because I was like, I like lionizing the greats, though. There's nothing wrong with that. That's not exclusionary. It's when you say, Herbie Hancock is great, and somebody else, you can't mention them in the same sentence. So I looked up lionize is to give a lot of public attention and approval to treat somebody as a celebrity. Okay? So I think that one we're kind of okay with. We lionize the greats, but let's also not be exclusionary as we do that, It's kind of like, in pop music and even like in classical music and different things, one-hit wonders are celebrated, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But in jazz, we never celebrate that. It's like you've got to be a master or you're nobody. If you haven't been anointed yet, if the greats haven't given you permission to start being a great, then, you're nobody. So I wouldn't mind if we had some one-hit wonders. We actually do. So we should talk about that. And then in terms of this thing of like talking about other musics, other genres, and there being some commonality, there being some crossover with jazz, that is looked down upon with this jazz elite, with this jazz dogma, where it's like, no, only jazz can do this. This is great. All this other music is garbage, or it's just candy for the pop masses. But if we look at like the greats that we lionize, Herbie Hancock, Miles Davis, Chick Corea, these are all artists, and many, many others, of course. Louis Armstrong, Nat King Cole. These are artists that in their time cross genres willingly, easily, and joyfully, right? So why is it that that's like, but when we talk about John Coltrane and Beyonce or something, then that's like a dirty word or whatever. The great artists that we also celebrate, why did we denigrate them when they try to do something else, when they go into another direction, when they want to do crossover stuff, you know? I don't know. It's kind of like the thing of like, why are we not celebrating Jonathan Baptiste? Why does the jazz world want to stay small? And then when somebody starts to go outside of our little, you know, what are those little lily pad? You know what I mean? Somebody wants to go out and swim a little bit and go to another lily pad, a bigger one or something. And then we're like, we just don't even talk about him. Like, I don't hear anybody celebrating much in the jazz world Jonathan Baptiste. It's kind of like, well, he left us. No, he didn't leave us. He's repping us. You know what I mean? And it's all one thing. I mean, Jonathan Baptiste is playing incredibly well-crafted music, playing piano and singing and dancing and entertaining, but uplifting, you know, doing all the same things. It's in a different way that John Coltrane did, that Debussy did, that Beyonce did, that, you know, that's what I think. Look, I just put them all in the same sentence now. But it's sort of like we when somebody leaves our little lily pad, we don't celebrate them. So we've been trying to do that. We've been doing that over at the pod. Adam knows. We've been talking about Jonathan Baptiste constantly because he's and it's not because, oh, well, he won some Grammys, so now we celebrate him. No, you know, I'm celebrating him when he's playing with Roy Hargrove, and then when he's going on the Colbert Show. What a great thing to have, you know, a pianist, a keyboardist, a New Orleans musician that's steeped in the tradition and is not stuck in the tradition, out there on the big stage doing his thing. Like, we need to celebrate that. And so when we get this elitist thing and we get this sort of dogma of like, no, we have to be small, and if it's popular, it's no good. I don't know. I don't like that. That's something I think wrong with jazz. And yeah. I mean, it was like I was looking at, Adam and I were both looking at this video yesterday on YouTube by our friend Rick Beato about Bud Powell. It's just like a 15-minute video kind of celebrating Bud Powell, playing some footage that I'd never seen before. But us in the jazz world, in the jazz community, we don't celebrate Rick Beato talking about Bud Powell. We'll say, well, we celebrate Bud Powell, you know, but we don't celebrate somebody that's got millions of viewers and exposing a broad range of folks out there on YouTube to an incredible artist that's certainly not forgotten, but is not necessarily known by the masses, and is very accessible and is very exciting. I mean, Bud Powell. I mean, the whole video is just about Bud Powell and how he's playing over rhythm changes, and he's basically just playing fantastic footage, great audio of Bud Powell, you know, showing that, and you know, getting, I don't know, he's got millions of followers. I don't know how many views that video got, but like, we don't celebrate that. We don't attach ourselves in the jazz world. It's like we want to keep these little secrets and keep things small and keep things, you know, to ourselves. So that's kind of my 2 cents. Okay, now I can see the comments, so this is good. Okay, Adam Manis. Let me see if I can get these comments up here. That would be awesome. Am I sophisticated enough to do that? I am probably not. Adam Manis says, boom. You know, I was threatening to bring Adam Manis on here, but that would be really complicated. Can we do this? Does that work? Is anyone wondering, if anyone is wondering, this is exactly what it's like going to happy hour with Peter. Yeah, it kind of is. It kind of is. Well, this is the thing. We're always talking about this stuff, and it's been my bad not speaking up enough about that. You know, in terms of like, I've fallen into like just being politically correct, and that's the other thing, like in the jazz world, it's like certain things we can't say, you know, certain things we have to act different. Like, why is that? There was an artist, a really good drummer who we listened to, Adam and I listened to on the podcast, a track from his record. We used to do a thing called First Take Fridays, where we'd listen to a new recording that we were interested in or that we'd heard about or something, and just react to it, you know. And we generally had never heard these before, so it was kind of an excuse for us just to listen to new stuff and to kind of keep up. And they weren't like brand new releases, but they were generally new releases. It wasn't like going back and listening to stuff that we knew and loved. But it was things that we were interested in and figured we were going to like, and in the jazz world. And actually, yeah, this was an episode we did, or several episodes where we went through and listened to a bunch of Grammy-nominated recordings, all from the jazz category, best jazz solo or best jazz album. And this particular artist, I kind of knew a little bit about, but didn't know much about. But it was nominated for like best jazz solo by Kenny Barron. I know a lot about Kenny Barron. I was like, well, this would be cool. I want to check this out. I'd never heard it. And we listened to it, and it was really nice. And, you know, we just reacted. It was dope. And I think everything I said was just honest. Well, I know everything I said was honest. And I think it was all positive. I didn't, you know, I just gave my opinion on it, but I was digging it. And this particular artist contacted me later because apparently I didn't give him or her the proper respect. I said his name incorrectly, and how dare I not know exactly who he is, and blah, blah, blah. And look, this is not to blame him. This is to blame the jazz world, that we're like, oh, you have to know everybody, and there's a pecking order, and you have to. So what? I didn't know somebody. Maybe he's the, I mean, I'm thinking, to me, if I went and listened to a podcast where they're listening to albums and they heard something I was playing on and they were like, oh, I've never heard this guy, Peter Martin, before. Hey, he sounds pretty good. I like the record, whatever. I would never be offended by that. I don't care that the, you know, 99.99999% of the world doesn't know who I am. That's fine. You know, I mean, if some people listen to my music or watch my videos and get uplifted or have fun or entertained or educated, then that's all great, you know. But it's like in the jazz world, it's like, you've got to know who I am. And do you know this oh yes, do you know this recording? You know, do you know Coleman Hawkins' Body and Soul? And do you bow down to that every day? It's like we treat it so precious and we're holding on to it. We're like suffocating the music, you know. And so, I don't know, that kind of just rubbed me the wrong way, because I think about other genres and just other things in life. I don't think people get so caught up in like, oh, you didn't know you said their name incorrectly? Yes, I did. Sorry. Guilty as charged. But that's not like, we're not up here to lift up people's names. We're up here to lift up the music, share the music, have a good time, learn how to get better, learn how to enjoy music, learn how to listen, learn how to do something positive out here. And we get caught up in these details, and it's like, you know, well, you mentioned Roy Hargrove's name 5 times as many times as you do Louis Armstrong. And there would be no Roy Hargrove if there wasn't a Louis Armstrong. People telling me stuff like that. And I'm just like, no shit, dummy. You think I don't know that? But why do we have to only talk about that? Why does that have to be like, why do we have to count how many times, you know, we bow down to the masters and lionize them? That's a dogma that we really need to get away from, I think. And look, I'm totally contradicting myself because, or you might think so, because I'm always talking about the masters. All I'm saying is like, there's no scorecard. You know, in jazz, I mean, there is a scorecard in jazz. And that's one of the things I think that's wrong with this music, that we're keeping score on each other. And the thing is, this is like for the musicians in the so-called industry. The fans of the music, which is what we're doing this for, this is what we have this channel for. Yes, it's for musicians that want to learn to get better, but it's for fans of the music, which you might be a musician or you might not be. It doesn't make a difference. I'm a fan and a musician, but I'm really a fan first. You know, I play music because that's what I love to do, and and that's my job, and that's what I'm big part of what I'm put on this planet to do, is to play music for people and to put something positive in this world. But this thing of like keeping score, and do you know this and do you know that? And I know all this stuff. It's not like I'm like coming from a place of like, oh, I don't really know the history. I know the history of the music. I know the records, but I don't know all of them. So what? You know? And so I think that, you know, this is something that probably a lot of people who are here on the channel and the stream, and thank you guys for being here. Happy Friday. Did I say that? But I think a lot of you, and really the fans of the music, who are the most important part of this, I think, and that's what all of our connection is, I think don't actually really care about all this sort of infighting stuff and musicians trying to, you know, no, this is mine, this is yours. You didn't know me, I knew you. You don't like this. What, you know, you didn't get permission to say that, and how can you be an expert on this? I think the fans are just like, wow, that's kind of silly. I'm just here to hear some music, to learn some chords, to have a good time, to tap my foot, drink a little wine and enjoy some jazz. You know, I mean, you know, we're so precious with this too. That's the other thing. Oh no, you can't listen to our music if it's background music. You can't listen if you're not actively listening. Why not? I listen to music when I'm not actively listening. I mean, if you're somebody that only wants to listen to music actively, that's great too. I mean, we talk about active listening. If you want to learn how to get better as a musician, that's practicing. You know what I mean? But enjoying this music, there's nothing inherently greater about jazz than anything else. then pop music, then Brazilian music, then bossa nova, then classical, then rock, then progressive metal. You know, if it's edifying to people and it's uplifting and they're enjoying it, then that's great. So what we're doing here is really just trying to find those connections, not trying to find the fences between the music. That's a lot easier to do, you know, but I don't think that's interesting to people. So we can find, you know, well, black people play this music, Asian people play this music. This is divided by this. This is the way that the labels used to do it. They still do. But, you know, people don't generally come from a place, at least when they're children, of like dividing music by ethnicity or language or race or culture or anything. The music is a rich tapestry that overflows and commingles, especially in this country, the United States. I mean, that's like one of our biggest gifts to the world. So let's treat it as a gift, this music, jazz and blues and R&B and all this great music that came out of the African-American experience. I mean, this is like a cultural with a depth that is incredible. So like let's not hold on to it and be like, this is just ours, you know. I don't know what's happening. Boom, boom, boom. And also, yeah, so the other part of this too, and I want to be clear about this because it does seem like I'm trying to play both sides or straddle the fence. We did these videos over on the You'll Hear It YouTube channel. Go over there and subscribe, by the way. We got some fun stuff happening over there. We've been going over the 7 greatest pianists of every generation. We just dropped today the Boomer edition, Boomer, which is some big heavyweights there. And don't worry, we overflow and have a lot of honorable mentions and additions. But we did the Millennials, we did Gen X, but we also did some stuff, OG artists, OG pianists, that's Adam and I, react to IG artists. And, you know, Domi and JD Beck, we talked about Jacob Collier so far. We're going to keep doing this. And I don't want to come across, I know I wasn't really negative about JD Beck and Domi, but I was reacting just honestly to that. But I want to be clear that I was saying some specific things about the music that I felt weren't for me, just like as a listener, as a fan. But I also talked about specific things that were for me, that I enjoyed, you know. But I don't want you guys to think, well, now you're saying, you know, everything is great. Jazz needs to be open and exclusive and not exclusionary and not exclusive. And I absolutely say that, but we all can also have personal preferences in terms of the way things go. I don't think that anybody, myself certainly, or Jazz at Lincoln Center or Jazz St. Louis or any institution or anybody with a platform, Rick Beato, whatever, Adamantis, there should be no gatekeeper to say JD Beck and Domi are jazz or aren't jazz. Absolutely not. They are part of this world and this great tapestry of music, and they're out here killing it, and they're connecting with fans and putting music forward, and that's amazing, and that's a great thing, and it's really cool, thoughtful, well-crafted, super well-crafted music. So this is not, whatever I said about their music was just me reacting to it, but it was not from the standpoint of like, well, they're not respecting the tradition, and they're not jazz, and they're not part of our little thing. Not at all. And I hope it was, I just wanted to clarify that that's the place I come from, because I don't think that this is going to be a little bit controversial, I think, among some, not among probably you guys, but maybe some of the old school jazz heads. Like, I don't believe that there's a pecking order or that there's some kings that need to knight or allow any artist to do their thing. You know what I mean? There is a history of that, not only in jazz, but a lot of different kinds of music, where it's like, no, don't speak up until you're told to be, you know, you're asked to speak. You can play in somebody else's band, but it's not your turn yet. Wait your turn. And that there's like this controlling, you know, kind of group that of the elders that say that. I think that I have a lot of respect for that, but I don't think that's fair to bring that into the current times. So you see certain artists like Domi and JD Beck, Emmett Cohen, because he's been out there really, you know, promoting and playing his music and presenting his music so well online, and it's just because of the medium that he's doing it, it's just spread around and he's gotten his name out there. But there's blowback, I can tell you, in the jazz world where it's like, well, it's not his turn yet. Why is he leapfrogging over us? I don't believe in that. You know, these are young artists, youngish artists, whatever, it doesn't even matter their age, that are using the tools, that are connecting with an audience, that are bringing music. They're not forcing anybody listening to it. People like that stuff. And that's great. Like, they're cultivating an audience. And as long as they keep serving that audience, it'll grow, you know. And they're putting positive things into the world. Jacob Collier, you know, a lot of jazz people, well, he's not jazz. Well, so what? So what if he is? Jazz is a shitty word anyway. You know, we had a great discussion with Nicholas Payton on the pod about that last year. So, I mean, you know, these are younger artists that are connecting and using the internet in a way that I'm very excited about. And I don't think any of them need to get permission from anybody. And, you know, we don't have all these bands like we had when I was growing up, especially during the pandemic, for them to be able to come up in that pecking order anyway. So what's wrong with them just taking it straight to the masses via the internet or whatever? New Jazz Underground, the same thing. I hearing people just like, well, who said they could have the next jazz hit on YouTube? They did, because they put some music out that people like. I like it. It sounds good. I listened to it. I recommended it. We had them on the pod. It's all good. Any other kind of world or genre, there wouldn't be this kind of infighting. You know what I mean? We think in small. Like, we need to think like growth. There's plenty for everybody. But in the jazz world, and I understand it, and look, our forefathers and foremothers like did a lot of the hard work so that I can sit up here in a privileged place and say all this stuff. Because when I came along, the thing was getting more expansive. But there was a time when everybody had to fight hard for getting their little thing and getting recognition and fighting the institutional racism that existed not only in this country, but in the music industry and all that. But you've got giants like Ray Charles that broke through Stevie Wonder, you know, Louis Armstrong, just on a business level to be able to do things, Herbie Hancock, in a way, and have the music to allow us, my generation and this next generation, to be able to do their thing. So let's look at this as a big thing. Let's not begrudge anybody's success. Let's celebrate Jonathan Baptiste. You know, I'm just like, why don't we, you know, we get these big artists in jazz more often than we think. But I remember somebody telling me, it might have been my dad or somebody from around that generation, talking about Nat King Cole and how he was, you know, he stopped playing piano as much and he was considered a sellout to some jazz people even back then. I was like, what? But he was killing it all the time. Like, to me, Jonathan Baptiste, danger. I need to get a graphic here for me getting in trouble. Jonathan Baptiste, in that way, is the Nat King Cole of our generation. Am I allowed to say that? Do I have to check with the elders before I say it? I mean, it's like, but he is. Like, he's got that ability to entertain, but to play. And, you know, to really play, but to entertain, to go back and forth. And he doesn't have to be at the piano, whatever. Diana Krall, you know, fantastic singer, fantastic pianist. You know, why don't we celebrate her more? And I know, like, a lot of people will say, well, she celebrated too much. But why do we have to say that? There's plenty. People love music in this world. If we allow it, we can grow the music organically based upon people's love of the artistry. And that's the democracy of the music. That's just inherent in how the music is disseminated via the internet or records or whatever. People are going to continue to listen to things that they like if it's presented in a way that's pleasant and convenient and sounds good and looks good. You know what I mean? We don't have to worry about that. We have a fantastic product with this music. We don't have to pigeonhole into just this one thing or make it so that the jazz charts, you know, 1 through 8 is Ella Fitzgerald, Miles Davis, you know, and then only 1 or 2 new artists, like we're having to fight against the past. No, let's lift up these new artists, though. But as much as we stick to this dogma of, like, only the greats are great until they die, and then the jazz mafia says, the jazz police says somebody's great, later on they can be great. That's what kind of makes people think, well, there's nothing happening in jazz. It's dead. Well, there's, you know, J.D. Back-and-Domi, but that's for kids that's gamer music, or that's for kids on IG or whatever. It's like, no, open this shit up for everybody, you know? Okay. Man, it's tiring to rant up in here, which I did not intend this to be a rant. It was just, I wanted to put these issues out there because I feel dishonest sometimes here when we're so, and I mean, hopefully this comes across in the spirit of being positive, because I really don't think I'm not trying to be negative. That's what I'm saying. Like, let's open things up, the pie. Let's make the pie bigger. Let's celebrate great stuff, and even some mediocrity plus. Nothing wrong with that, but let's celebrate things, and let's not, Christian McBride is always, I don't know how much he talks about it publicly some, but it gets lost in the shuffle sometimes. But he's always talking about just how important it is to play music, to present music that has the aim of a direct connection with the listener, like for a visceral and, really deep connection of how the listener interacts with jazz music in a live situation, and how that's so important. Like, that's the thread of greatness in this music that we should be celebrating. How much you can get the audience to tap their foot, not who wrote an essay on, the harmonic explorations of this saxophone player being better than this one, and Beyonce can't use this chord or whatever, but like how much you can get people to emotionally and intellectually and spiritually and culturally respond to the music in the moment. And when we talk about jazz, yes, it's swing and it's these different things, but that's not the most important part. It's like we're improvising in a way that we can pull it off live or record it or whatever that connects with people, but it has to be in that kind of a way. And so like Christian's very good at like, always keeping that first and foremost. So I just think that that's something that we could use as kind of like the barometer of greatness, you know what I mean? And include things in that way. And look, not everyone's going to be able to connect and get people's foot tapping like Christian McBride, but that's okay. I mean, there's other ways to do it. I'm not saying it has to be that way or it has to be that style, but like, let's use that as the barometer instead of being like, oh, is it okay to say that Diana Krall is great? No, maybe we should say somebody else, or is it, I mean, I don't know why I'm on Diana Krall. That wasn't my plan, but love Diana Krall though. But you can love Diana Krall and love Billie Holiday and love Ella Fitzgerald and love Beyonce and love, Emmy Cohen and love Christian McBride. And I'm just naming people that I love. Like, this is all stuff that I listen to. So there are police in all genres. A student brought in Black Cow because he wants to. Okay, let me throw this up there. I'm just reading this in real time. There are police in all genres. A student brought in Black Cow because he wants to arrange it for his high school band. Awesome. Becker and Fagan describe themselves as rock musicians who love harmony. Right. So, I mean, that's such a cool thing. Like, in these other genres, that would be like cool. But if you're a jazz musician who wants to apply progressive rock feels to jazz, you're going to get some blowback. You know what I mean? And I don't know about the police. I don't know. Maybe rock does have police like that doesn't allow this. They have the police. I do know about them. But yeah. Anyway. Okay, I missed a lot of comments. I'm sorry. All right, next time I do this, I'm going to be more on the comments, less on the my own dogma. But anyway, hope you guys have a wonderful Friday and are staying uplifted. There's a lot of stuff going on in the world as always, but I so appreciate Open Studio and all you guys, our entire artists, our members, the followers of the YouTube channel here, Fred Hersch and Anat Cohen. If you haven't got a chance, I'll put a link below as soon as this is done to that video. It dropped today. It's just a great performance by them. And also the Fred Hersch course, Art of the Duo, which is, it's Just Friends, Art of the Duo, which is just released today. The launch special is, if you buy the course or become a member, is that you can be part of Fred's live masterclass, which is going to be on October 16th. If you haven't been to one of our masterclasses, they are super exciting because they're live and they are our members. They're really about our members and these great artists that are helping them along, but really helping all of us. I don't miss one. I mean, I've been like, I was on an airplane one time watching it. I bought the internet, the Wi-Fi to watch one of our I mean, we have like some of the young guys like Emma Cohen. We've had Gerald Clayton. We've had Fred Hersch several times. We've got Sean Jones coming up. I believe we have Christian McBride. It's not just pianists, but it's so exciting because it's our members that have been working, especially like in Adam Manis's Open Studio Pro program where they're getting together every day and have really made a lot of progress. And this is their chance to like step up and play, for somebody that can be a little bit intimidating, but we're all like kind of learning from the reaction. In this case, what Fred will be doing in terms of, likely some nice solo piano playing and some fantastic advice, from a teacher that's probably taught more Gen X and millennial great jazz pianists than anybody else. So make sure you join this weekend because that'll be special to be able to get to be a part of that on October 16th. And his chorus features Anat Cohen on clarinet, of course, which you'll see on the performance today. Gabrielle's Stravelli, who's a wonderful singer that I wasn't familiar with, that Fred brought to our attention. Fantastic vocal duos. And Drew Grass, great bassist he does. So there's a little, if you're into duo playing, check that out. And anyway, that's all I got for y'all. Until next time, I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Stay lifted, stay connected through the music, spiritually connected, and peace and piano.